Sports Source, this segment brought to you by Madisonville Marine. Folks, there is no better place to buy a boat, and right now, through October 15th, that means you've got about a week, there's no better place to buy a Skeeter bass boat. Get up to $2,500 back on select models of Skeeter through October 15th at Madisonville Marine, Highway 411 North in Madisonville, or check them out, madmarine.com. All right, back with Josh Ward and David Cobb. Gentlemen, I want to talk to you about the future. 2019 specifically, let's talk about the outlook for Tennessee. Josh, I know you covered this on your podcast, which everyone needs to check out. It's the only daily podcast covering the Vols.
Locked On Vols podcast.
There you go.
Anywhere you get podcasts.
You owe me. All right. The thing I want to talk about, though, the problems for next year, and there are a couple of problems, appear to be in the same spots where you've got them this year. In terms of, in the SEC, you got to have good line play, but there are holes on that roster. On paper, there are holes along the lines for next year's team. Yeah,
the 2019 class has been very much focused on recruiting both lines for a reason. If you look at Tennessee's defensive line, you have senior Shy Tuttle, senior Alexis Johnson, senior Paul Bain, senior Kyle Phillips. They're not there next year. Those are four of your top five guys probably. Emmett Gooden comes back. That was a nice junior college signee, I think. Matthew Butler, you need to take a step forward. But those are still unknowns for what they're going to be next year. But what are you building on? I'm not sure. You're probably asking some freshmen to come in. And then on the offensive line, I think at least a couple of guys. If Tennessee can land Darnell Wright, he's uncommitted right now. But if Tennessee can land him, hold on to Wanya Morris, both of those guys could have a chance to play right away next year, which gives you hope for the future. It's just that extends the future in the conversation because freshmen playing in the SEC, that can be very challenging.
Especially when you get two of them on the offensive line. The problems kind of trace back to two signing classes. The main problem.
Yeah, for sure. 2016 and 17. And 2015 at this point has not lived up to what it was supposed to be, so you can extend that. But in terms of, again, building for what Tennessee hopes to be now moving forward, the 2016 class just did not have the quality at the top. It's difficult right now to find anybody that you would call a star player. Nigel Warrior is probably a guy that you're saying, okay, can he still become that? 2017, you have Trey Smith, you have Ty Chandler, and then what do you have? And it's not to write all of those guys off because the 2017 class is only in its second year, but what did co-defense coordinator Chris Rumpf say when he spoke to the Knoxville Quarterback Club? He said, we don't have enough depth. We have to go recruit. And Tennessee does have depth when it comes to numbers. They don't lack for players.
Right.
They lack for quality players.
Playmakers.
Playmakers, according to Tennessee's coaching staff.
David, I might have mentioned this one earlier, and if I did, I apologize to you at home. But VFL Charles Davis said this week that fans may need to prepare. He was on Paul Feinbaum's show. Fans may need to prepare for a little bit longer rebuild than they had anticipated.
Yeah. Just what everybody wants to hear.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Tough to ask this fan base to be patient again. What type of recovery timeline are we looking at here? I don't know that you share the same outlook in terms of 2019.
Well, I mean, first off, just take a deep breath and know that basketball season is around the corner.
Right.
It's almost here. But John, I do think that one thing you've got to evaluate when you talk about the rebuild and the turnaround here is next season's schedule is a lot more forgiving than this season's schedule. So I don't know that the talent level is going to be exponentially better, but the schedule will be easier, and that makes a huge difference. And it's the second year of the scheme. All these sort of problems that they're having, I mentioned this to Josh over the break, and you'll forgive me for forgetting the exact years, but you guys remember under Derek Dooley, the offensive line took a huge step forward from one season to the next with a lot of the same guys. It went from being really, really bad to actually being pretty decent. And so I think that there's a chance that that could happen with Tennessee's offensive line because the pieces that they have with that unit, and you mentioned a guy like Darnell Wright and Wanya Morris, if they end up here, I mean, there's reason for optimism there. I do still think, though, that the problem with this roster getting to a point where it can hang with Georgia and Alabama is that Georgia and Alabama are already doing it.
Right.
I mean, I don't know that Tennessee's going to be able to out-recruit them. And so I do think they'll improve. I do think that by, 2019, 2020, we're talking about, 8, 9, potentially knocking the door of a 10-win team. But can they knock off Georgia or Alabama? I don't know.
Very good. All right. So a little bit of optimism right there for you. When we come back, talking about recruiting linemen, I'm of the opinion, and we'll talk about this, the O-line has hampered you for a while now. It is so important. I'm of the opinion, sacrifice other spots and just oversign linemen. And I mean oversign, even if it hurts the rest of the roster. We'll explain that, and I'll see what the VFLs have to say about that next on the Sports Source.